if he's going to be drafted as the first quarterback in your league, aside Patrick Mahomes or before Patrick Mahomes, he needs to be the number one quarterback in your league by a wide margin.
Yep.
You're spending a second-round pick on him. That's possibly your RB1 or your wide receiver 1, depending on what you took first, or an RB2 or wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
What's up, Guff Gang? Grown up. Oh, Zach is here. Whoa, baby. Grown up fantasy football is back. Zach is here. I am here, but unfortunately, James is not. So sad.
Why is he gone, Joey?
Well, we don't know quite exactly why, but we do know.
We know exactly why, Joey. His father is having butt surgery. He's getting a whole new behind. So naturally, you can't be here for that. So I mean, it's fantastic for his dad. You know,
he needs a lot of support during this time.
It's a great story. Great story.
Well, while James is not here, and we do know why he's not here, but we also know how to get him back, and that is through subscriptions. The power of subscriptions. It brought Zach back from a horrid fantasy loss. It'll bring James
Shadow
back.
Realm. And it'll also support James's father.
Yeah, of course. You want to support anybody who's going through that right now, that kind of situation. But on the docket today, we are back in the fantasy arena. Doing a
Lucha Libre.
We've got two quarterbacks in the Showdown arena, and that is a Mr. Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens and a Mr. Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans. Two studs enter the arena. One emerges victorious. Who will it be?
Oh, my goodness. This is exciting, Joey. This is exciting.
Are you tingling?
I'm eager with anticipation.
Then we can't wait anymore. But before we do, be sure to like and subscribe if you like this kind of fantasy content, and be sure to hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we post these videos. They're coming out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, just for you, the loyal Guff gang.
Give us a showdown too. Give us a comment. Let us know what two players you want to see in the ring for our next videos. We want to know. These are important showdowns right here.
Mm-hmm. They're important to us. They should be important to you, and they're important to the world as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So without further ado, let's get into it.
All right. Let me bring us the facts. So we have a Mr. Lamar Jackson. Yes?
Show me the Carfax.
With pleasure, Joey. We have a used Lamar Jackson. All right. So we got a Lamar Jackson. Right now he's QB 11 on the season. Deshaun Watson's QB 6. Deshaun Watson has 185 completions on 271 attempts so far this season, 2,376 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. He's also rushed the ball 40 times this season for 197 yards, 1 touchdown, and he's averaging about 4.9 yards per carry. Another little fun fact here, he's had 3 fumbles on the season, but 0 of those fumbles he's actually lost, okay? On the flip side of the coin, we have Lamar Jackson, and I actually see right here that he has 134 completions on 213 attempts, which is a little weird. I actually thought he would have a lot less attempts than he did, but 213, it's low, but it's not insanely low. 1,513 passing yards, that's pretty low. 12 touchdowns passing, 4 interceptions. He has 79 rushes, though, for 469 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and he's averaging 5.9 yards per carry. On the flip side of the coin, he has 6 fumbles on the year, and 3 of those fumbles have been lost. So pretty sure we could see that because of that increased number of rushing attempts. Moving forward with the schedule, both of them kind of have, I don't know, like a middle of the road schedule. Some of them have a little bit tougher of opponents, I guess, going forward. We can talk about that a little bit later in our arguments. Sure. But so far on the season, Lamar has gone against 4 top 10 defenses against QB. Meanwhile, Deshaun has faced against 3 top 10 defenses against QB. So, Joey, what is your argument? What are you thinking of these two QBs?
Okay, so one thing that stands out to me about both of these quarterbacks is what you literally just mentioned. Both of them have faced off against 3 or 4 top 10 defenses. And that being said, Deshaun Watson's numbers are pretty good facing off against, would you say 3 for him?
Yeah, he's gone against 3 top 10.
Mm-hmm. Through 8 games. So the majority of his games have been against, less than top 10 defenses. He lost his best weapon in Nuke this year with an absurd trade from Bill O'Brien. But Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks have actually been playing better as of late. They started the season, you didn't really know what you were getting. There was really no semblance of a true number 1 wide receiver in that core. And plus they were playing the Chiefs in week 1. So I kind of want to give them a little bit of a mulligan there just because 1, it's the Chiefs. 2, it's week 1, and 3, no offseason, no preseason. They haven't had no time really to gel and mesh together. And we're starting to kind of see somewhat of an identity for this offense. They bring in David Johnson, but it looks like it's more of a passing offense, which bodes well for a quarterback who can throw the ball very well. He's on pace for 34 touchdowns, which is the most of his career. Pretty solid.
Yeah.
Plus, another thing that sticks out to me about Deshaun Watson is he has had only 2 games with less than 20 fantasy points. And he's had 250 passing yards or more in each game. He is a very consistent quarterback, someone who we thought probably was going to regress a little bit this year after losing DeAndre Hopkins. He's basically stayed the same, if not maybe a little better.
Yeah. I think one of the things we have to take into account, too, is the crutch that the handicap of having Bill O'Brien as his coach the first couple of games.
True.
They traded away DeAndre Hopkins, which was a huge blow to him. But then losing Bill O'Brien was a very good piece for him. So it might actually equal out because right now, I thought at the beginning of the season we were going to see, okay, we have a team who lost DeAndre Hopkins. We have a offensive line that's not that great and a QB that's fantastic. I thought he was going to actually rush it a lot more than he's been doing because he does have that skill set. But with Bill O'Brien gone, they really are establishing the pass. I know their play action pass rate is so much higher now with little Romeo Cornell there instead of Bill O'Brien. Deshaun Watson is number 7 in terms of passing yards on the season of all the QBs. He's number 8 in passing touchdowns. He's averaging 23 fantasy points per game, which there's going to be games where he gets you like in the 30s, but 23 fantasy points per game is the definition of consistent. And then he does have the rushing ability to help you with that floor, which I think right now just the consistency in itself gives you a high enough floor. And then his yards per attempt, like you said, they got Will Fuller, they have Brandon Cooks. They're all pretty speedy guys there. So at first you're like, okay, they don't really have a number 1 wide receiver like DeAndre Hopkins. They just have all these speedy guys. But his yards per attempt, he's averaging 8.8 yards per attempt, which is number 2 in the league. So these speedy guys are actually helping him out, I think, in terms of his fantasy production, his passing yards, yards after the catch. So he really, really is kind of playing lights out right now. And the Texans are actually looking, pretty good offensively at least, and as a high passing attack. So it's definitely good to see. Definitely boost your confidence in him after the whole Bill O'Brien saga, the first couple of games this season. So what do you think of Lamar on the flip side of that, Joey?
Well, real quick, going to Deshaun Watson, staying on him for a second. You mentioned all the speedy guys on the team, and was this was kind of what Bill O'Brien was trying to build after trading Nuke. He brings in Brandon Cooks, brings in Randall Cobb. He's got guys that are really fast, and even David Johnson's still a fast guy too. So there's a bunch of speed out there. I think that was kind of the plan that Bill O'Brien wanted. However, he just couldn't do it. But yes, let's move on to Mr. Lamar Jackson. Action Jackson, might I call him.
Oh, Lamar
man,
Action.
right,
Maybe.
just forget the Jackson.
Maybe.
He was the man last year. And we said it before in like one of our first episodes. We were finding the next Lamar Jackson, I think. Lamar was going to hit regression. It was coming. He threw 36 touchdowns last year. It's 6 picks. And had like over 1,000 yards rushing, over 1,200 yards rushing. I think that stuff it's real. Okay, regression came and it hit him kind of hard. Something that stands out to me about Lamar, he's only passed, his longest pass of the year has only been 47 yards. Not great in a high-flying offense with speed on the outside in Hollywood Brown. But I think the biggest detriment to Lamar Jackson has been his ADP. He was a second round or a first round guy, and if he's going to be drafted as the first quarterback in your league, aside Patrick Mahomes or before Patrick Mahomes, he needs to be the number one quarterback in your league by a wide margin.
Yep.
You're spending a second round pick on him. That's possibly your RB1 or your wide receiver 1, depending on what you took first, or an RB2 or wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much talent in those. It's such a big tier break, I think, between like the second round and probably the third round. I think there was a pretty significant tier break from this year. And you could get quarterback. You can get a quarterback later. The thing we've just said it about Deshaun Watson, and I think it goes for any quarterback. The thing you look for in a quarterback is consistency, because it's so easy to pick someone up off the waiver wire for a week. This is a guy you drafted in the second round, third round, maybe even the first round, and he's averaging like 17 fantasy points a game.
Yeesh. Yeah, you want. I think a lot of people were trying to chase after his success last year. And a lot of people called that, he's going to have that regression. His touchdown rate was dangerously high last year to where we knew he wasn't going to be able to continue that. But they're averaging like about 190 yards passing per game, which is not good. His accuracy rating is number 27th in the league right now. So he isn't as accurate. We saw the first game of the season, he was like lights out with his passing. Like it literally, like his efficiency was insane. And now each game, it just kind of gets worse and worse. So now his accuracy is not that great. So throw in limited amount of pass attempts, low accuracy. He's got the rushing floor. So I love seeing the amount of rushing yards he has. I don't think it's as much as last year at this time, but he's got, he's got the floor with the rushing ability. But I just don't think his ceiling's as high as we would have liked it to be. Now, he's still averaging 20.4 fantasy points per game, which is still number 10th in the league. His rushing ability, though, I don't think anyone's looking at him in terms of passing right now. I don't think anyone's saying, okay, I really want Lamar Jackson because he's such a good pass. He is a good passer, but I don't think anyone's saying like, oh, he's thrown for 300 plus yards a game, 4 passing touchdowns. No one thinks that's within his realm of possibility the way the Ravens run their offense. But in terms of running, he's number 1 in carries right now among QBs. He's number 2 in yards per game among QBs. He's number 2 on yards on the season among QBs. And then he's number 2 in red zone carries among QBs. So that rushing floor, although we know it's the ceiling isn't insanely high with Lamar because of the amount of passing, it still might not be insanely low of a ceiling either, though, because of all these numbers. At any point in time, he could have a 4 rushing touchdown game, have 100-something rushing yards and get you, 30-something points. So the way I see it, yes, we anticipated the passing touchdowns to go down, the passing efficiency to go down this year, but we also anticipated teams to kind of key in on his rushing. and to game plan around that. And it really does look like he's still able to run the ball fairly well. Like he's averaging, what did I say, 5.9 yards per carry for rush attempts. So he's still doing fairly well rushing the ball. So I'm actually not as concerned with the rushing side of things. I'm actually glad to see that he's still able to produce on the ground. But yeah, it is a little concerning just seeing the lack of passing that this offense is throwing together. Now, granted, they did have their bye week. Marquise Brown's actually the squeaky wheel or the leaky cauldron right now. On the Ravens. So he, who knows, maybe he'll get some more targets. Maybe they'll kind of amp things up with the passing attack, just with, good talent like Mark Andrews, Marquise Brown, who knows, Des Bryant, probably not, but I don't know. I could see a realm of possibilities moving forward with some of the passing or with some of the games they have going forward too. Some of the teams, we had Pittsburgh. He didn't have an amazing game, but he also had, I think, like a touchdown run called back. He had a couple of plays where they were called back or things just didn't work out to where he easily could have had like a 25 plus point game. So, and then you want to see them go against teams that are actually good because the Texans, their defense is not that great. Flip side, Ravens defense is good. So you want to see them going against teams that are actually good. So looking at a team like Pittsburgh, where it says they're number 5 against QBs this season, I'm not super concerned about that because at the same time, their offense isn't that bad. So I could see them move the ball, score on the Ravens, and then the Ravens have to come out and play from behind. Meanwhile, if you play the Ravens against someone like the Giants, they could get into a early lead by the second quarter, and then second half, Lamar doesn't do anything because they don't have to, So defensive-wise, the schedule, I think, moving forward for both of these two, I think favors Lamar over Deshaun just because the amount of teams that are good that they play, I think, is better game script for the Ravens moving forward. But then you have on the flip side, like the Texans, they play Indianapolis twice, and they're number 1 against QBs. They play Chicago, who's number 4 against QBs. They play New England, who's number 3 against QBs. So you never know what you're going to get with the Texans offensive line, with the Texans on the offense as a whole, even though Deshaun's been playing so great. So
with Lamar playing Pittsburgh just a couple of weeks ago, he only scored 14 points in that game. He also scored 14 points against Kansas City. I think it's a thing we've seen with Lamar Jackson is the big games and even like the NFL playoff games. He's got to get past the hump. He's got to get over the hump on those games. And, you mentioned like the bad defenses that Lamar will play. So I think, yes, you've got a point, but I think that the way Lamar's been playing is he's using his legs more. He's obviously not he's not getting as much yards on the ground, but I think his rushing attempts, what do you say, 79 attempts? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a lot of rushing. I think he's going to rely more on his legs, and he's number 1 in red zone carries for quarterbacks.
Yep.
That's 6 points compared to 4 points as a passing touchdown. I think if Lamar is running the ball so much, there's a chance he could have 3 rushing touchdowns against a defense, like Tennessee or somebody.
Yep.
And then you've got that's what 18 points right there.
I mean, you have a built-in running back with Lamar. Like these teams and this schedule, you not only have to look at how they rank against QBs, you have to look at how they rank against running backs because Lamar honestly is going to be running the ball so much for you. So you really do have a built-in running back QB type combo. So,
but yeah, I mean, the rushing base keeps him relevant and it keeps him somewhat reliable.
Yeah.
But the touchdowns, that's where he needs a little bit more because he's not getting it done as much as he was last year in the passing game.
Exactly. Now, what do we think of their weapons? So we have Lamar on the Ravens side of the ball. They've got Mark Andrews, Marquise Brown, Des Bryant now, Willie Snead. Texans side, they have Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, Kenny Stills, David Johnson's a good pass catching back.
Randall Cobb.
Yeah, Randall Cobb.
Packers legend.
Oh, yes. So what do we think? What side of the ball, offensive weapons, are you leaning towards in terms of their wide receivers?
So I think obviously tight end is better in Baltimore. I think it's close-ish probably Baltimore with running backs, but I think wide receivers, I'd give it to the Texans.
Yeah, I think if like overall wide receiver weapons and just offensive weapons, if the Ravens involved J.K. Dobbins more, man, I think they would like just their offensive weapons as a whole would be insane. So I would say Ravens if that were the case. But right now, with them not involving them, the Texans wide receivers have actually been pulling together. You know, Brandon Cooks has been doing good. Will Fuller, and we said this earlier, in a season where injuries are high and where COVID is a thing, watch Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller remain healthy the entire time.
Survive, yes.
And so far, they are surviving and they are thriving. So, yeah, I agree there. But what do you think, Joey? Are we ready to give our verdict?
I think I am. Are you?
All right. Yeah, let's do it. What do you think? What is your verdict? Who do you say among Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson?
So I was a Lamar Jackson owner last year. I was able to ride the wave of greatness of 2019 Lamar Jackson, his MVP form, his final form, might I say. And it was incredible. And I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. A fan of his in college, a fan of him in the pros. But I'm going with Deshaun Watson. There's so much consistency in Deshaun. And I think I've said it before. We've said it. I'll say it one more time. Consistency is what matters at quarterback. So I'm going Deshaun Watson rest of season.
All right. I am going to say neither. No. I'm going to say
plot twist.
Both lose. Now, I agree.
Gardner Minshew.
Yes. I'm going to say Deshaun Watson. I mean, the stats kind of show it with his passing. I know he's not rushing as much as Lamar. And like you said, those rushing touchdowns, those rushing yards are very valuable, especially for a QB. But Lamar, just passing wise, isn't making up for that. Like he's not, it'd be different if he was having like hundreds of yards on the ground per game to make up for the lack of passing, but he's not. He's doing well rushing, but not well enough to make up for it. Meanwhile, Deshaun's been playing lights out ever since Bill O'Brien left. He's averaging 23 fantasy points per game. The schedule moving forward, there are some tough games, but I could still see them overcoming that. And one of the things that scared me the most about Lamar is I do believe that when they go against good offenses and teams that can keep up, yes, he has more of an opportunity. But going forward, they play Dallas, they play Cleveland, they play Jacksonville, they play the Giants. Any one of those games could be a game where the defense for the Ravens plays lights out and the Ravens get up to an early lead and then just decide to piddle-paddle the game away to where you see Lamar and all the starters not really having to do much the rest of the game. So that hurts fantasy value-wise. Like, I want some close competitions where it's going to be a shootout and, yeah.
Where he's
and
in
honestly,
the game the whole time.
Exactly, yeah. And with the Texans, like, football-wise, it's not good, yes. But fantasy-wise, with them having a bad defense, that is just better for Deshaun. So give me Deshaun Watson, yeah. And I think James would agree with us, right?
I think he would too. Part of me thinks he'd take Lamar, but I think he'd go Deshaun.
Yeah.
But you heard it here first, everyone, in the fantasy duel in the case of Watson versus Jackson. The verdict was ruled in favor 3-0 in the case of Deshaun Watson. That being said, Lamar Jackson is still a very good fantasy quarterback. He's still a starter in most leagues. There might be some times where you may want to bench him. I don't know. Probably not, but that's going to do it.
Might be some times where you want to trade him, though. If your trade deadline's coming up, maybe take this video to heart. See if you can do a little package deal. If you need help with your trade that you are offering or being offered, let us know, too.
Yeah, hit us up on Twitter at GrownUpFF, and we'll help with those trade negotiations, just like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon in episode 1.
Yes.
But that's going to do it for today's episode. We went with Deshaun Watson over Lamar Jackson. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at GrownUpFF. Be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to grow up, and be sure to get guffed.